This is The Real Gig with Bret Alexander.
Mike Nadock, how are you, my friend?
I'm good.
Episode 13 of The Real Gig.
Lucky 13.
Like, look at me.
This is great. First time I've been here in like 30 years. Yeah.
You and I back in the day used to write in here a little bit.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen any of my other episodes of this, but basically what I do is I'm going to do a little intro, and we'll do 2 episodes. This is the first one, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'll do a little intro on you, and then I'm going to set you loose and let you do your thing.
Sure.
So basically, my association with you is, you were and are the main co-writer that I've written with the Badleys material over the years. Late 80s, once again, probably started here. Or I met you through Jeff. Jeff introduced me to you.
It was Jeff.
Yeah. So, we started writing back in the day. You were a DJ, and you sent a cassette to our manager, I think, to Terry.
It was like a cassette, and because there was a thing on the
and some lyrics
speaker.
Standard.
Because Ron's from McAdoo.
Yeah, Ron's from
Hazleton Standard Speaker. So I was writing lyrics and song ideas and stuff for a long time. Never really worked with anyone, but I wanted to. And so I found out that he had an office in New York City, just off Times Square. So I took a bus one morning, first time in New York ever.
Really?
In 1988.
I always learn things at these. I did not know this story.
Yeah. Went there, and it's a little office space off of Times Square, and he shared it with a guy who was a real estate guy who kept yelling on the phone.
Yeah.
Somebody for some reason, and had a broken window in the place, and Terry had a little desk that he just had off to the side, and I just showed him some lyric ideas, and he thought they were kind of neat, and had the cassette, and he introduced me to Jeff.
Yeah.
And that's how.
That's cool.
Because
Terry was like kind of managing some hip hop artists. I remember there was one guy named Joey Kidd, and I don't know if he was if he was doing work with. He introduced us to Loose Bruce.
Yeah, Loose Bruce.
Loose Bruce was also an actor. He was like in the opening scenes of like Last Exit to Brooklyn.
Okay.
Spike Lee, I think, and a dancer in different hip hop videos and things early on. I don't know what happened to Bruce.
But because that was the time that the whole Badly White album, or the Badly White EP was out.
Right on.
So he gave me a copy to take back to play on it, and on AZL, what was AM 15 then.
Right.
It was like early AAA radio for guys.
Right. And in the bank building.
In the bank building.
Right on.
And then Ron came in one day and gave me whiskey as a thank
Did he?
you. Yeah, he brought whiskey down to say thank you for playing our record. Yeah. That's where I first met Ron.
Really? I did not know that. See, I didn't know any of this. I just my intro was a cassette, and I can't remember what the song was. But I remember an early song that you had worked on with Jeff was called "Waiting on the Resurrection." Does that sound right?
Yeah.
And there was a couple other ones, and a really early song I know was "Gentleman East," which we used on my solo record
that
years
was like late 80s. Yeah.
Late 80s didn't get used till early 2000s.
Yeah.
So. So that's kind of was our intro. As for somebody, we're going to talk a lot about specific songs, a little different than we've done in the past on a few of these other episodes. But you have a little bit of a different path to be for maybe people out there that you became a songwriter, and lots of music we've put out there that we've collaborated on, and you had no aspirations to the stage.
No,
not really. You came from the DJ side,
just behind the scenes things, writing songs and demoing stuff. And
like I said, like you were kind of like the Badleys, Robert Hunter, or Bernie Taupin, or one of those kind of guys.
Sure.
And I another point I'll make was the band. People listen to music on all sorts of levels. And I'm still in my intro to you, but I'll get to the point. People listen to music on all sorts of levels. Some people listen to it on a real surface level. Some people get the best music is something that you can dance to, that can also you can kind of go back to 10 times and get something more out of it. Some more out of it from the, whether it be the lyrics of the music or the composition or whatever it is. There's lots to discover there. That's what made the Beatles so great. They were catchy tunes, but there was obviously masters of their craft.
Deeper going.
You could go deeper in. And I think the Badleys thing, we came along at a time where it was like we'd been around for 6 years or 7 or whatever it was, and we came 6 months behind Hootie and the Blowfish. So I think everybody kind of looked at it like, oh, well, like we hadn't even heard them when people were telling us that we sounded like.
Comparison kind of.
But it was on a reel. We had a baritone singer. We had 2 guitars, bass and drums. The arrangements, probably our backgrounds. I know that they were John Hyatt fans. We were John Hyatt fans. They loved Tom Waits. We loved Tom Waits. But then I just always thought it was a crime that these things were held up as the same when you've got Hold My Hand, Take Me to the Promised Land on one hand, and you got Song for a River in the other.
Yeah.
I don't see those things as the same other than on the surface level.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the really big crimes of our sort of limited success. We had some success, much more than most people that go out and try to do this crazy business. Yeah. But was that more people didn't get to really dig into the stories in our collaborations. There's many crimes beyond that, but that's a big one for me that you were involved in, and I thought that it was world class, as good as anybody.
I thought so too.
Yeah, and
kudos to you people for taking me seriously. From the get go.
Yeah. Well, there were. This is a very long intro, but I'll say there were reasons. Once again, if you listened on the surface to what you were doing, because like your drums were this little Casio keyboard that went, and every song would start with the ding 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 ding. Angelina's coming.
Basic idea.
Yeah, and that was that. And if you're not looking at it, and you're not looking at a lyric sheet, and you're not kind of regarding it as what that could blow up into, you probably would miss it.
You probably would, because it's just here's the basic little Casio track and the guitar, and then
not everybody can hear through that.
Yeah,
not everybody can.
But if you're looking for just a basic demo for the song, which is all I could really do back then. Didn't have enough really. Couldn't play well enough.
Yeah, you've evolved.
Yeah, I've evolved since then. I can actually play it. Yeah.
So okay, so basically that's our intro. That's how we met, and that's how we got started. So I'm gonna let you go. So how did you get in? Where did you come from? Where did you come from, Mike? I do not know this.
Where did he come from? I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Moved back here in like 1979, 1980, because my parents are from Frackville.
Okay.
So we would come back here to visit once a year anyway for vacations. And when we moved back here in 79, 80,
really,
that's when I started to look for work in radio. So I wanted to do that. But I also was just writing lyrics and poetry and that kind of thing. And I did a couple of poetry readings up at the Yingling Mansion, which is the art center in Pottsville, and that kind of thing. But I always wanted to work with someone, because back then it was just like you write lyrics and there was no pentameter, or anything. It was really hard to make them fit into something, because you're not working by economy.
Into a song form.
It's just a flowing thing, and that's when anybody who's writing early will do that. Just write, and there's no real flow to it.
Right.
So the great thing about getting involved with Jeff and then you is like being able to economize and being able to, if I'm doing a song or a demo, how to make it fit into something, or if and most of it back then was lyrics first and then music, and now it's basically music and lyrics.
Really,
I write music first and then the lyrics fit, or the feel, or the mood of the song.
That's like Bob Dylan was asked that question, and they said, what comes? That's a popular question. What comes first? What comes first, the lyrics or the music? And my answer to that is both.
Yeah.
They both come at the same time.
I'm doing it. And now it's more so now that I've access, because I do a lot of stuff on Logic.
Yeah, you do something in software.
Software, digital audio, and multi-tracking. And I have keyboards. And even though I have psoriatic arthritis, I can still play, because I can do open tunings.
Sure.
And custom tunings, and over the top and over the bottom. I think it's... In that sense, it's made a lot of difference of like tone, guitar tone, where it's not the same traditional chording, and
just doing an open tuning.
Open tuning made it really interesting as far as what I can add to it. You can augment with parts and that kind of thing, or keyboards, or idea for a bass as I go along, and building them up like that.
Like somebody like Keith Richards, people hear that sound and they don't understand exactly what it comes from. Like he he tunes in like open G and takes the low string
off.
Oh, so he plays a 5-string guitar, not a 6.
And I've done that. I have a guitar that I've done that. I've taken, but I left the low string on and took the G string off.
Yeah,
and made that kind of an interesting feel when you're feeling around where you don't have that G, but you have the low E. So that was and plus heavy gauge strings I have on a guitar, so that makes it really interesting, like sonically to me to do something with that. Experimenting with things.
But it's funny, like when you understand the underlying, whatever the magic trick of it is, then it's a little more easy. When you get into that tuning and you start messing around, then you're like, okay, well, here's brown sugar.
Yeah, you'll find it eventually because that's how a lot of the stuff was done in that tuning.
Yeah,
for a long
just
time.
From love of old blues records because they would tune in. People that don't know this about like open tunings, they would tune in these open tunings so they could use a slide and they could just
makes it move
around.
Better,
so you can just. It's really easier to shape out something like when you're playing with something that's whether it be playing one finger corns or you're playing with a slide. Right. You're playing straight across.
Yeah.
And in standard tuning, it's like Dwayne Allman would be a standard tuning, mostly a standard tuning slide player, but a lot of them are open tunings that they use.
Yeah, that ring and that sustain.
Really and that just kind of informs a certain sound that you don't usually get. You don't get from standard tuning.
No, as far as writing, it's like that's the whole thing now, and even back then, I just enjoyed just sitting down and just banging something out and see wherever it goes to. And, or writing lines and seeing, well, maybe that can go someplace, and quite often it doesn't go anywhere. But people never see that. We'll never see those tunes that are unfinished someplace. Yeah. And I've gone back and done like how many years down the road. This is one I haven't listened to in a while. It actually was pretty good. I should go further that. I just abandoned it and then go back and work on it.
Right. There are things that the spare parts thing. It's like I said it's like Grandpa fixing the lawnmower. Takes out all these parts, looks at it all, and only puts half of them back. But he sets those parts over here in case later he needs another part, for something. Oh, I need a spring. Okay, that'll work.
Yeah, cannibalizing stuff. Take a line out of this one, it worked here, it works in this one. And this line works in this song as well as. Well,
we've had songs like lines jump from song to song. One was like was the song that I wrote, "Diamonds in the Cold," was a line in Like a Rembrandt. Yeah, which was your tune. Yeah. So I guess I stole the phrase from you.
It's all right.
So we kind of go back and forth, and it was a different song, but and that was the thing that for you that struck me early on is I always liked people like whether it be a writer or a songwriter that had like a real certain sense of place to what they did. That there was a very certain. It felt very much like the coal region to me, like your lyrics and your stories.
Oh well, that one because I was listening to. Bring the Family by John Hyatt. Yeah. And the song Thank You Girl. Yeah. It had such like a real moving spirit, it was a little joyful tune. Yeah. And I wanted to write something like it would incorporate like a field party. Yeah. Somewhere in Schuylkill County or whatever county it is.
You mean like a Rembrandt?
Like a Rembrandt.
Song. Yes.
And I had the line, get a load of that with a Snakeskin song, looks like a refugee from a headbanging song. Mm-hmm. I had that, and then I just went and wrote the whole, all the vignettes and little scenes and imagery.
But I mean, who was it? Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance guy, Robert Person. Right? He was saying that any masterpiece or whatever, any book that's a masterpiece, he would sit with his kid and you just go through a book and you go through it line by line, and you can kind of go through it and you're going to get a little story out of every line.
Oh, sure.
That's going to remind you of something. And it's just, all of it is considered and worked out and hits hard. It's like, so a song, I mean, you go through like a Rembrandt. I mean, I play it in my acoustic shows. So, you get a little that with its snakeskins on, looks like a refugee from heaven. So, I mean, every kegger party, or you guys would have been doing it. I would have been doing it up in the woods, up in Bradford County. The kegger party. You would have been doing it out on the coal slags. Probably or old abandoned mines.
Old abandoned mines, like
the song in its own way reminded me of like Van Morrison, like Brown Eyed Girl or something. You know, that kind of feel, this party in the woods, or party out in the cold.
Hanging and
and so, but everybody had that headbanger guy that was at the party, you know. Sweet July, even though the words we ever known, we're here at the breaker shaking the west. Okay, you're at a breaker, you're in Northeast PA, you're in the coal region. You know?
I'm not sure if anyone has a cassette. Music's dragging on a cheap cassette.
Yeah, and it was like there was a line later on about like, you know, the same tapes as last week. And it's like everybody had the same cassettes, you know, and like and you played 3 or 4 of them over and over again until they wore out. You know, you're not getting it off of this and Spotify. You played them till they wore out.
Oh yeah. And
especially guys in bands, and they're driving around in vans. What was it? They said Nirvana had like a mixtape with one side was Celtic Frost and the other side was the Smithereens.
Okay.
You know, and like so they were like, you know, they were Smithereens
fans really,
because they didn't, you know, they had a shitty van with a same cassette. They had just one cassette to listen to.
You know, use a matchstick to.
Well, that's the 8 track. Yeah, that's the 8 track.
But actually, if it jams and then have to clean the little cotton thing off.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. So like when we inadvertently started with like a Rembrandt, you know, like as I said, always reminded me, and people still mention that song to me. You know, it's the imagery of the chorus and One of a Kind is Shades of Grey World. It's great line. And you know, it's like I said once again, it's not exactly hold my hand, take me to the promised land. You know.
Oh, no, yeah.
So, but that's the way things are on the surface. But you know that. I love that one. That was first song, album 1. Yeah. For the Badleys. And, you know, our charge with that, our process was usually, I was living in Northumberland. I remember when you came over and we worked on that song. And we would just go back and forth. And like you would say, it would be kind of like, you'd kind of have these things and they'd be pretty sprawling. And then it was, you know, then my role was more musically, you know, like we're going, okay, well, let's do this. How make this work? Let's pull this in. Yeah. You know, how about these changes for the verse? How about this melody, whatever, like that. So that was kind of our collaboration. There were a few songs where we bit and pieced them out, or you know, the musical. You know, it just kind of we just kind of waited through it, whatever it may be.
Suggestions, and that's always good. The whole collaboration. I really enjoyed a lot as far as like. Here's an idea. See what somebody else thinks, what they can add to it, and make it better in a lot of ways. You know, that's the big thing about collaboration that I like a lot. Yeah.
Well, how about let's dig in. How about people ask me a lot of time with this song, like if there was a real person involved. It was like Song for a River.
Actually, no. It's just something I
made it up.
I made it up because I was watching a Mets game, and somebody got kicked out. And I had that image in my mind. I was watching, this is like back in like 92, 93.
Started with that.
And the guy got kicked out. So I just wanted to see, because he was belligerent, and they showed him. And
that started Song for a River.
That started Song for a River. And I just wanted to just write that whole cloth and forward it to the actual.
What actually happened, the character development of that guy?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, he just made it up. Yeah, he just figured it out, and then I just wrote. Well, that seems to work, and I put the Partysville Woods in because, there was a junk shop out there. An old, a middle-aged guy had a old garage and cars and rusted hoods laying around, and he was kind of a recluse, so that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you kind of maybe pulled in a couple different people, 4 people.
Yeah, so it's like a composite of a bunch of different things, probably.
I usually tell people that too. So they say, "Well, is this about someone?" Sometimes there are a few songs that are about one person, but usually there are 3 or 4.
Yeah, usually it's like like a bunch of people influence what the outcome is. Of the tune that I'm trying to work.
Great quote by. You ever see the movie Barton Fink?
My favorite movie of all time.
Really?
Yep. I love Barton Fink.
I did not know this.
It's my favorite flick of all time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, what's with John Turturro?
John Turturro.
And he gets to the end and he finally meets his hero. And the guy's standing in like a hotel or something in a robe, hanging open. And he kind of gives him this whole spiel of like how much his work meant to him and that, the People's Theater and what he had done.
Right.
And the guy's loaded or I can't remember, maybe he wasn't loaded, but I just remember the guy going, I just like making shit up.
Yeah.
Like he'd waited his whole life to meet this visionary who would that he wanted to know where it came from, and the guy just said, well, I just like making shit up.
Yeah. I mean, it's ancillary stuff. I mean, like people that you meet, or just even situations or things that you see driving around. It's like, it's like scenery, or just a moment somewhere. And just like, I might be able to like riff off on that and create something out of it. I think most writers do that. I think there are, like you said, songs that are about specific people. But I think for the most part, it's just writing about, a composite and wherever that leads emotionally.
Sure.
And again, a lot of that depends on the music.
Right.
Key it's in, as far as like minor keys or whatever passages that'll evoke something too.
The fun guy to listen to talk about songwriting is actually Noel Gallagher. I'm an Oasis fan, and he had to, like, for instance, the song "Don't Look Back in Anger."
Yeah.
And he said, "This of your mind." That's like some sort of, kind of came from John Lennon on some level.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's like some cassettes or like demos they had of John Lennon in the Dakota that he had.
That kind of
But there were those words in there. It was something of that song was sort of ripped from these demos. That, and then it was this is "Don't Look Back in Anger." So then later on the song it said, like, stand beside this fireplace, get that look up off your face. And he said that's what their mother was always like, send them over by the fire to get their picture taken for Christmas.
Yeah.
Get that look off on and that ends up in the song with words about John Lennon. Where's the book that teaches you how to do that?
Yeah. There is,
and then an interviewer will say to him, slowly walking down the hall faster than a cannonball, whatever. What does that even mean? And Noel Gallagher will say, I have no idea.
It means something to me, maybe.
I have no idea. You're going to tell those 60,000 people out there they're wrong for singing along?
I think it's great with interpretations of people and our tunes and a lot of stuff people have interpreted to me. I had no idea that they got that out of it.
Sometimes that happens.
It happens,
That the one you said that the guy in the Mets game.
Yeah, completely.
And we didn't finish that song. We'll go back to that.
Oh yeah,
okay. This is the way it works. This is the way it works on this podcast. It's random.
We're just riffing on stuff.
I don't like to prepare because it never goes well.
Oh no, just go.
Our job is to stay sober through it. So which we do not always succeed. But what was I saying? I was going back to not Song for a River. Oh, I know. You were saying that the Mets game guy.
Yeah.
It started Song for a River, which kind of really isn't the point of Song for a River at all.
It's just
And I remember, like, I bought a house for a different song. This was one of my tunes. I bought a house. First house I ever bought, and it had these really low windows that were very low to the ground. And I had my dog was kind of just going and pressing its
I remember
face up against the window. So there was always these
nose prints in the window.
Nose prints of the dog, So that was like the song Luther's Window.
Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Windows, yeah.
Okay.
So it's like I thought, wow, what a lonely image. The poor dog wants to go outside, And then it just blew up into this guy and many verses and.
Yeah.
That was the start of it, though. It was just like that image of the nose prints of this dog trying to
get the hell out. I never do that.
Yeah. So, it had very little to do with the story that eventually built out of it. Mm-hmm. But
that Song for a River was just, I get this verse. Can we take it in this direction? And the guy and how's he, the epic thing, living his life and his followers, and sort of became a legend.
Yeah.
As the narrator's doing,
I love the part in that song where you said you finally see it like an obituary in the paper and you see his name.
Yeah,
it was like, well, I never saw his real name. Yeah. I mean, how many people, especially, I don't know, I guess it's that way everywhere, but in northeastern Pennsylvania, coal region, you got
nicknames for everyone.
Nicknames forever. Yeah. My in-laws are the king and queens of that. My wife's parents, they have a friend named, that was Shitty's place.
Yeah.
And, Shitty was over there, and
the Buddha,
Flick, the Buddha, and Flick, and then Bard and Stork, and and all these guys. No, I don't know their names. I've known them. I know these people for years.
I've called him Stork my whole life. His real name is Oliver.
What?
I can see why I wanted to use Snort.
Yeah. So all these guys, you don't. Anyway, that really stuck with me because I was like, wow. And anyway, so I remember we had this song and you had these lyrics, and I don't remember. I just remember the story. I just remember the story, the whole story, and we sat on it for quite a while because we had that in the early '90s. Yeah, probably 5 years prior before it would have came out on River Songs.
Well, the whole arrangement of that was great. The whole epic feel.
Yeah, but basically, what I heard was, okay, this story's too long to develop a melody for 7 minutes because it's a long song. So what I was thinking was, okay, we'll put an intro section in there, kind of like Great Gig in the Sky. Was kind of the thought, was Pink Floyd.
Right, okay.
And we'll do that, and then that has that sort of spoken word thing in that song. You know, Not Afraid to Die, you know.
Have a big epic build up and then break
it
down.
But then my next thought was Robbie Robertson, Somewhere Down the Crazy River, which was a completely spoken
word
song.
Thing. Yeah.
And you know, and that was a hit, and it was the same thing, just a really cool story. Built over time, and so then you could kind of get into, okay, we got this, you know, Great Gig in the Sky section, we got this Robbie Robertson section of this spoken part, and then we have a regular chorus, and then we'll just kind of tell the story over time and build it musically.
Build it and go back, you
know, and then it worked, and it worked, and when I still do live streams where I play solo, just live streams, and that's one of my most requested songs to play.
Oh, wow.
Is Song for a River, which is strange. I would have never called that in a million years.
Yeah.
And
it just holds up.
That's a good one.
Holds up to people, I guess,
Really did. Okay, I'm going to go to a different one. How about, this is one a lot of people won't know, but we put it on the solo record I did in 2003 or whatever, was the song Memphis Restroom.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That was great. That was a great version of that. The whole
that
breakdown and
I just listened to that the other day.
Yeah, I played that on Cellar Full of Noise a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how'd that one come about?
That's a great record. Again, it was just listening to John Hyatt.
John Hyatt. Memphis in the Meantime.
No, it was Tennessee Plates.
Tennessee Plates.
I got got a feel.
Looking for a Cadillac with Tennessee
Plates. That got a feel. And I just wanted to do something with a more of a bluesy feel to it, and the kind of like rhythm in the lyrics, and that kind of cadence and flow.
And basically a story about a guy that's in a restroom that just got out of prison.
Yeah, got out of prison. He's on his way to Florida trying to make a better life after after so much happened, and he did a great job of that vocally too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really did.
Yeah, that's a good track.
Yeah, the whole arrangement was great.
And they
really was.
Yeah, the part that I thought was neat. Like, who wrote the lyrics for Chuck Berry's songs?
Chuck Berry.
Did Chuck actually write all those?
One of the best lyricists of all time. Yeah, he's one of. That's why he's one of the best.
Really? I agree.
Most are Chuck Berry lyrics.
Okay, I assumed he did, but I never really did my fact checking.
I think
there's a co-writer in there though, right? Isn't there? Was it like a piano player or something?
You're
the historian.
In a roundabout way, Johnny Johnson.
Maybe that was
who's keyboards who I met at the Pocono Blues Festival.
Really?
Before he died, because Michael Cloran would do Pocono Blues. He had it about for a year.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guitar licks that Chuck Berry does were the piano licks that Johnny Johnson used to do.
And transferred
to guitar.
Yeah.
Kind of like roll, like
that roll
barrel house. You know,
yeah.
He would. A lot of that, so in that collaboration, a lot of the way that Chuck Berry tunes are is because of Johnny Johnson.
Really?
Actually invented that kind of like sustain or like a,
that little roll where they do the roll up to the major third.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I know what
that
you're
kind of piano roll.
And Floyd Kramer style.
Yep. You know, would work them into guitar tunes. But I think lyrically, it's almost all Chuck Berry.
Really?
He's just brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying one of the greatest lyricists, like pop lyricists or popular music lyricists of all time. Totally agree.
Oh yeah.
And like
just listen to, just read the words. You know,
yeah. And I do could just read the words. They're little movies.
Yeah.
And I play that song "You Never Can Tell."
Yep.
And I love. I would say, you know, one of my favorite lines in a song, period, is, it sounds so stupid to say, but it was like Coolerator was filled with TV dinners and ginger ale.
Oh yeah.
That is like, I mean, that is like the 1950s.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, that sums it up.
That sums it up, yeah. And that kind of thing, like the whole suburban life or school days. And
I thought, well, I just love singing that line because it just feels so, you know, when my parents were teenagers, and, you know what I mean? And that whole vibe, and it's so well done, and it's so ordinary. Yeah. And that's so much harder to do than to write something lofty.
Yeah, lofty or poetic or whatever.
Right on.
Yeah.
So the line, why I mentioned that is because the line in Memphis Restroom, the line I love, my favorite, I don't know if my favorite, I love the whole song, but I love that line, the guy's in the bathroom and he says, you know, whose idea were these moist towelettes? Whose idea were these moist towelettes? You know what I mean? And the whole thing is like, well, he's been in prison. They were invented while he was in prison. Yeah, you know, and it's and if you're not a person that pays attention to these things, you probably missed the whole thing. You don't think about what that means.
Yeah, and it's actually cheaper than soap, so we're using.
Yeah. So I've been in prison. What are these?
Yeah, these are like little.
Yeah, I just got out and
smell like alcohol.
Yeah, right on. But that's a great line. You know, that's a great line because that's that whole Ernest Hemingway. What's he call it? Like iceberg theory or whatever. Like where basically you just kind of give this little tiny bit of information, but that implies all this other stuff that's underwater.
Yeah, because you're implying, and it's like part of it too. You know, well, if you want to look deeper into something, you can go back and listen to it and see what you think. You might get something else totally out of it, or it may come across the second way you hear it different than the first time.
And you can kind of circle back around to things. I've always been amazed by, you know, the way I started this interview. You know, it's kind of like, well, you're dealing with things. If it doesn't work on a surface level, if it doesn't work to someone that's not paying attention, they're never going to get underneath it.
Yeah. You know, something has to grab you somewhere.
Yeah, but it's great when there's something there for someone that does want to dig in a little more.
Yeah,
you know. And
I always thought our stuff was like that.
Oh, I always hope so.
Whether it's our collaborations or you on your own, it's always had like deeper levels of things going on. Yeah, where it's a really good, catchy thing up front, and it's a really well arranged, a good arrangement, and well produced, and it sounds and it has its own life live, apart from the studio. But there's always something going on that you can go back to and listen to and ponder down the road when you listen to it again. When you go back, and you can read along, and it's like line by line. Yeah, like you mentioned the book, you can go line by line. Yeah, if you really want to. And a lot of our stuff and break it down. Yeah, and it makes it a lot more interesting that way to a lot of people. Yeah, I think it does. And I've always enjoyed that about your thing. There's just these other levels underneath, and it's not typical topics that I would. I'll give you another example. The Celerbirds, open ended. Oh yeah, that's great too. This song, and what I'm going to have to do. You did such a great job on that. It's just all the ambience of the. All the ambience and the arrangement and the changes. And that's a favorite of mine. I'm going to have to put links in this podcast underneath, so people can check out these songs. A lot of people aren't going to know them. Yeah, the Celebird stuff. Yeah, and like that one, for instance, is about off-track betting. Yeah, two people in an off-track betting. Yeah, in the OTB. At the OTB. At the OTB, and just go to hang out for a while, and and the brother's there, and then he doesn't know that you're watching him, so you're trying to hide, so he doesn't know you're watching him. Just because, take a break. That's somebody that I was with for a long time, and her mother was in the hospital, and it was a real chore to go back and forth to help take care of her because it's a nursing home, so they couldn't take care of her all the time, so people had to come and do their thing, and it was a lot of work for a long time. So we would be able to go out and just go to off-track betting in Hazleton when it was open, and relax and have a few, and be able to bet on Triple Crown races. I was never really. We played the horses. We just go 3 times a year. Yeah, just for fun. But and that whole thing, I just wanted to write down and just do that. But I mean, like we're mentioning, partying by a cold breaker. We're mentioning
the guy, out in the woods that's running drugs across the state
line, yeah.
And then now you're mentioning, and hanging out at off-track betting. It's not exactly love songs.
No.
I mean,
but it could be.
It is, but I appreciate that. I appreciate storytelling, and I appreciate that kind of level of work.
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed being a collaborator.
Yeah. I always that version, that track's a masterpiece to me. It really is.
Open-ended?
Oh my God! It's just all instrumentation, and just all in the vocals and the feel of it, and the break. It's like wonderful.
It just kind of takes these turns.
Yeah,
it takes these turns, and and then I agree. I love that track, and a lot of these people probably have never heard it that are listening, but.
If you can't, open-ended by the Cellarbirds.
Yeah, that's a good
one.
one.
Perfect Smile.
And I know the end. And we kind of like did this whole kind of. I don't know how you would describe the production. Kind of felt like space going for because you had this line about. And
the cosmonaut is dreaming.
No, it was like the
astronaut is dreaming.
They're an astronaut that's dreaming about the day he doesn't have to eat freeze-dried. And
lived on it for a month. And
he just can't wait to get back to Earth so he doesn't have to eat this freeze-dried shit.
And it's just like simple stuff.
Yeah,
simple things are.
Well, it's not simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's not everybody can do that.
The way the end of the line is like simple things are whatever I said about it.
So the ties to destinations.
Yeah. The simple things of life, like short little things, are in a lot of ways way more important than the major stuff. The gravity of things. I
was like that with my. It makes me think about like my children. Like when my kids were born. It's like and they're being born, and people talk about. Just being overwhelmed. Yeah. With, the beginning of life and, the miracles.
Oh, yeah.
And all the things that go along with that. And I was just, at that time for me, I was just worried about everybody being okay.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, the enormity doesn't hit you till later in life when you're driving down the road and your kid's in the seat behind you eating a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh my God.
And your dad. Yeah.
And I'm dad and this human's back here eating a cheeseburger. Yep. And it's like that's the way it always was with me. Something small.
Yep.
Later on, Deb would just wreck me.
Yep.
The big thing it would take me a while to digest. That's just me personally.
Yeah, there's a little.
I might be just.
No, it's just daily vignettes. So there we go.
Yeah. So that's always been very important to me. Anyway, one more thing about open-ended, and then we'll do one more song, and then we'll call this an episode. But like the astronaut is dream. Like there's this great song I love, and it's not a hit of his, but this Jason Isbell.
Oh yeah,
and that song on I think it's on the Reunions album. The song's like River or the River or something. Okay. And he has this whole. Song starts out like the river is my savior, or used to be a cloud. Now she's happy just to lay there. And that whole image. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a nice pastoral or whatever the word may be song about a river. And then the next line is he's like, well, river. Wash my head when I've been sin and wash my knuckles when they bleed. And then the next line is something like, protect me from my neighbor, all his jealousy and greed. Throw the body in the delta to hide the weapon in the weeds. And I'm like, well, okay, well, now there's a murder. We're talking about a river here for 15 seconds ago. Now there's a murder involved.
There's a river, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and like I said, in your songs and everything, like, okay, we're just talking around, we're talking about this. Then all of a sudden it just goes way over here. And that's delightful. That's the delightful stuff.
I always like to do that just because it makes me, and to this day, I still get really excited when I write something. And I think it's really cool. And it hasn't changed at all in like 30 years. I still get really, if it works out,
I've told people that, and I'm not the only person to say it. There is, everybody from Robbie Robertson to Steven Tyler to anybody will tell you, no matter what the personality type of the person, will tell you that it does not get any better than when you write the song.
Oh yeah,
that is the best feeling. When they haven't made an arena big enough
when it all works. Yep,
it's to wonderful. Give that feeling to you. I mean, for a show, they have not made a venue big enough to make you feel better than you feel when you
write the song.
When you write the song,
and it works out, and you're excited, and you want people to hear it.
Yeah,
because and that's how it was with a bunch of stuff. Like put it in cassettes, put it in the mail, and ship it off to you.
Yeah. They used to come in little envelopes.
That's how we did it. Yeah. Back in the '90s, cassettes in little envelopes.
Yeah.
Go to the post office and put them in the mail, and there you go. And say, don't X-ray it because you'll erase it.
Yeah, I remember. Do not X-ray. But that was, actually, the studio Saturation Acres the name came from when we would write letters or emails to each other. We'd sign them at the end. You had always wrote from above the tree.
Oh yeah, really?
Or whatever. And I remember I said one time from Saturation Acres.
I laughed my ass off. I had no idea what that meant. Yeah, but it was funny.
And that became the name. That was just one of our exchanges.
Yeah, high up on the hill.
Yeah, high up on the hill, picking and grinning, whatever would be the sincerely at the end of the letter. And one of them was from Saturation.
Yeah.
And I used that.
Right,
okay, so let's do one more song. So let's do this one. This is a good one. Thinking in Ways. Let's do that one.
Oh, okay.
Thinking in Ways. That's on Up There, Down Here. Badly's Down Here. Up There, Down Here.
The prepaid funeral song.
Yeah. How many of those are there? How many prepaid funeral songs are there?
No, out there somewhere.
I have not heard them.
No, I had the music for that first. Because I was listening to Wilco.
Yeah.
And a certain song of a field. I forget what the song was, but I like that little feel that I had going on, which changed in final arrangement.
Changed once.
But I had the whole pentameter down. I didn't have an idea what I was going to write, so I went back to my parents' place in Origsburg one weekend.
Yeah.
And my dad had this brochure from Stabinga's Funeral Home in Grissona, which is a prepaid funeral thing, and he showed it to me. He says, when I die, all you do is call this number for you and your mother, and they'll take care of it all. Because that's how he was. He was all meticulous and nice and neat and things.
And just had it pre-done.
And all this. And so I just decided to take off on that and embellish it and add characters and the whole thing about bringing people out that you haven't seen in ages, and because that's how it usually is in funerals.
It reminded me of the movie Big Fish.
Okay,
you know that movie Big Fish. Tim Burton.
Sure. Oh, okay.
Tim Burton movie, and it's all kind of like this one guy's a writer, the main character, and his father is a storyteller.
Yeah.
And they just kind of keep going. They go back and forth. And his dad's always telling him these insanely tall tales. And Tim Burton has kind of made them into a movie. These giants and all these crazy tall tales.
Yeah.
And it gets to the end of the movie and the dad dies. And like all these people, they see all these people showing up at this funeral. And they're all kind of there. Yeah. Just like they were just exaggerated versions, but they were there. Like they had these, they had the giant and the twins and all these sort of crazy stories that he had told were all in part true.
Yeah,
and that was kind of like at the end of that was like, all these people, these are my life. These are all these people I've been with. And you'll get a better idea of who I was by all these people. And it always reminded me of that movie because it was
okay.
It always reminded me of that movie because the end of it. You should watch that movie.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to watch, but it got to the end of it and it was kind of like, hey, it's kind of all true.
Yeah.
All these things I've heard are kind of all true.
Yeah. That's the whole arrangement of that. The whole feel of it was violin coming in, and it was like mellowed out. It was like nice and soft, and brushes and that kind of.
Mindy
thing.
Jostin played violin. Yeah, and that was way before we knew Nike.
Okay, yeah. And it was beautiful.
She worked for who'd she play for? She passed away. She
really?
Had cancer, but she was Shania Twain, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Or she had a couple like really big gigs. People she played. She was pretty. And she played the violin on that up in Bearsville.
Okay, yeah. But that's just embellished, just like take that line and just write about a funeral and reckonings and things, and looking at life and looking at.
Well, you did a hell of a job on that. Man.
We made people we've never met weep.
Actually, I get
emailed,
that one a lot. That one a lot. I mean, Two States. One of my tunes.
That's great.
That one a lot. People. These things become songs at their weddings, songs songs that get played at funerals.
Well, that's the thing. There's no better compliment if you're working on tunes and have a connect like that.
Yeah.
With people that have that kind of a big part of their life in terms of, or maybe not like a big part, but some part of your life with a song takes you back to someplace, or you connect with it right away, or there's a feel to it.
And it's not always nostalgia. A lot of times it's the actual song.
It's the actual song, So there's no bigger compliment than people that you never even met or so moved by it, Yeah. That says a lot about.
And I think that's why, production, and I think that's something to be said about why it never gets any better than writing the song.
Yeah. Especially when
because you pulled this thing out of the air.
Yeah.
It wasn't there.
No, it wasn't there.
A couple hours ago.
You're doing something out of nothing, and there it is.
And there it is. Now it's a thing. Now, okay, well, this kind of came from out there, went through me, went through you, and now it's a tangible thing. Now we can take it and we can make it into this.
Yep.
And this is esoteric. I don't know how this works on the podcast. but we made it into this, and then we pushed it out. We push it out into the world, and then somebody else can kind of feed off that.
Get what you get out of it.
Yeah, they can put a little. You can put back and put a little energy out, and pass it on.
Yeah,
and that's powerful stuff. That is.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
and we'll end episode 1 right here, and this is what I want to do, man. I want to talk about these songs because people ask me.
Yeah,
what a lot of these songs are about, and I would definitely not want to talk about them without you here. So this is great. All right, end of number 1.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.